So hello everyone, today we're going to be talking about Apache Iceberg. You might have heard me talking about CDC, right? That is change data capture. But the biggest power of CDC is when it aligns itself with Apache Iceberg. So Apache Iceberg can be considered as a simple lakehouse that provides you the ability to work with source table formats. So it's not only a buzzword that is originating in the companies to which our company is migrating to. Consider it as a format where you have multiple files, but at the same time you can't query them or run it through various analytic platforms. It goes ahead and provides you the capability where you can go ahead and add these files, and each file would go ahead and behave as a simple cohesive table. So as simple as that. But at the same time, I want to go ahead and dive a bit deeper onto that with the usage of various articles and summarize it all for the various data engineers that are here, by the same time for the various students. So we're starting off with this article by DataChem, where it's describing that it acts as a lens that allows you to view and manage a collection of data files that were a single cohesive table. So as stated, it provides you the ability to work ahead with data and with the files, but at the same time giving you the capability of having a very large scale organizations management. So as easy as that. But at the same time, let's go into a bit of how it originated. So it originated from the company that is Netflix. So Netflix and its engineers were working with Hive table formats, but at the same time, it had some issues with it. Firstly, the most important issue was that it lacked the absence of atomic transactions. What is atomic transactions, you may ask? So consider you have a lot of operations going on in your company, right? You are managing, for example, a payment gateway. But at the same time, these transactions, you want to go ahead and merge them as one. So it goes ahead and process without a much of an overload, and a different type of batch processing can take place. But this was an issue with the Hive table formats. Secondly, was that its inability to guarantee correctness. What it is? Well, basically, when you're working with data, you need to have the data which is actually very precise, but at the same time giving you the correct answers. This was the lacking, and it was not something that it would giving it a good, accurate answers to. So the engineers went ahead and created Apache Iceberg, and it originated in 2017. Then it got open source, and it was completely adapted by the community later in 2020. So that's where it originated. So as stated, it was a necessity that got this to be invented. So now we would be diving into another thing, that is what was the actually the problem with the traditional data lakes, and what actually is data lakes, you may ask. So consider, while the company gets bigger, their need to run analytics also grows, and that's where these data lakes arise. Consider data lakes as simply a kind of database or a large kind of a server where you can store all these kind of different files, and you can go ahead and query them. So S3 was there, right? But then why did Apache Iceberg was the need? So consider Apache Iceberg as a simple layer that exists over S3, where you can go ahead and provide it the ability to store the content in S3, but it provides it with a metadata management where each file would be associated with a particular, for example, we can say a ID. At the same time, give it a ability to manage each file accordingly and run the queries through. So it's another layer that provides it with a better ability to manage things. And secondly, the organizations and the various companies that are working had the issue of the data swarms. Basically, the data was disorganized and it was difficult to navigate. So consider you are have a library, right? And you have a particular box that have all the amount of pages of different books piled up in it. And a person comes ahead and asks for a book. Would you be able to merge them all in and create a single Harry Potter uh, series book? No, you can't, right? But now with the usage of Apache Iceberg, you can, because each file would be provided with a particular ID, would have a particular metadata assigned to it, so you know how the things and everything would be connected through. So these are the problems that earlier existed. Apache Iceberg that solved them. So Snowflake, you may ask, Snowflake is one of the leading companies, right? And now it's talking good about Apache Iceberg and its adoption as well. So it provides you with one of the compelling reasons of how the companies are migrating and why they are migrating. First is the table format that I already talked you about. Secondly is, let me tell you about the interoperability. So consider that you have an organization and you are working with different tools. One is, for example, a tool that is running for a query. For example, you are working with Presto that is handling your various query operations. Secondly, you might need the usage of for example, you can work with Trino as well. This is the another software that's used for query operations. That's for one. But you can manage all these various engines under the Apache Iceberg umbrella only. You don't need to go ahead and have different softwares handling each part assigned with Apache Iceberg. So it had this particular thing built into it. So a table format that can more efficiently prune queries and also optimize table files to improve performance across all the query engines. That's what Snowflake states. And then we have another thing, that's ease of use. That's, of course, it's very easy to use when you are going ahead and migrating your various data by usage of Apache Iceberg. It's actually very useful, and their docs are also easily understandable. So that's for one. And you guys can go ahead and read through all these blogs. These are various reasons that I wanted to talk about, and why the Apache Iceberg is the leading platform to which the companies are shifting to. Let me name a few of them as well, right? For example, let's start off with few of the leading ones only, to which I created some notes of. And the leading of them is actually Apple is a company that have realized this potential of Apache Iceberg, and they have went ahead and shifted their various operations by the usage of Apache Iceberg. That's for one. And another thing is, let me tell you a brief about CDC and Apache Iceberg now. All right. So the companies and Apache Iceberg had a good relations going on, but then came the Debezium, which provided them the capability of working with CDC. That is change data capture, you may ask. So now, let me dive a bit about what were actually the issues going on with the Debezium and how it did cut off, which I did tell you in my previous video, but let me dive a bit deeper into that. First was complex setup and maintenance. Of course, it was much more complex to set up with Debezium, as it requires multiple connectors and at the same time working along with different connection files, and it also required Kafka integration. So that was a more operational overhead. Secondly, I stated operational overhead. Thirdly is the snow snapshot, which I already did told you. So it had this kind of a latency that was going ahead with the Debezium, which earlier created an issue of the adoption with the companies. But at that time, the companies didn't have any much alternative, so that's why they went ahead and go ahead with using the Apache Iceberg with Debezium only. But right now, the things have been quite modern, and with the growing ages, we have come with a very good alternative of how to go ahead and implement Apache Iceberg in the companies by the usage of OLAP. So it's a platform that allows you to go ahead and work with your database and add them to a particular data lakehouse, be it working with any kind of database. For example, Postgres, it allows you your integration with MongoDB as well, which you can all do by the usage of OLAP UI or simple Docker Compose file, which you can just run off from your system and by the usage of simple few commands. That would be revolving mostly around of how you would be going and working with the various streaming services of CDC, and your usage would be not much operational overhead, and it's actually very much efficient. Those benchmarks have been already told in the previous video. So let's come to the end of it. So how are the things looking on for now for Oleg, for Apache Iceberg, and also for the various companies? Right now, the companies are migrating to these open source table formats. One of the issues that lies is that they go ahead and work with the traditional approaches of databasing. That's where OLAC is something that we would like to recommend, and how we would like to recommend is by usage of benchmarks only. We have created some benchmarks on our various platforms that are leading by the various companies and how we are performing better in them. So you guys can go ahead and view it on our site. Our core community is also working together of improvising these benchmarks more and more. So I will catch you more on that. Till now, this was all about Apache Iceberg and how it's working in helping out the various data engineers to run analysts, but at the same time, the organizations to cut down their operational overhead and make it easily adoptable. So see you in the next video, where I will be talking a bit about how we go ahead and create these benchmarks. See.